You know exactly who these menaces are. They have incredibly sophisticated and complex movesets. They have a normal attack, jumping, heavy attack, rolling attack, some sort of barrel roll attack. They also block with their shield and they can parry you into oblivion. It's obvious the only two stats that they've touched are dexterity and endurance. Characterized by having slender builds and wearing no clothing or armor, these guys travel around in packs and they'll give you the beatdown. They wield the Scimitar, red and white round shield, or the Falchion, and that's the only equipment that they use. They don't buff their weapons themselves or cast anything. But that begs the question on everybody's mind: how would a lore-accurate skeleton fare in Dark Souls? Let's find out. I know the Wanderer class starts with the Scimitar, but I wanted to earn it. I made the Deprived, and I plan to farm for it. I'm beyond stupid and did not remember that you can buy the Scimitar from the Undead Merchant after the first Undead Burg bonfire. I spent nearly 3 hours farming for my first Scimitar, a red and white round shield, on the skeletons right outside Firelink Shrine. By the end of it, I was level 18 with 23 dexterity. This +0 Scimitar did nothing but tickle the Tauros demon to death. This was not boding well since I already was 17 dex from soft cap, and we were already at B level scaling. What's going on? I got to the bonfire at the Undead Parish, bought 8 Titanite shards from my boy Andre, and then upgraded my Scimitar to +5 before even trying to start the Gargs. I went ahead and also got the Ring of Favor and Protection to help with the lack of vitality. For those who don't know, the kick attack when using the Scimitar turns into a quick slash and backflip, so I had to unequip this to push my boy Lawtrick right off the edge. On the Bell Gargoyles, this thing was cranking now. I was working with 27 dex and 181 attack power. My attacks were quick, hitting for nearly 100 damage a swing. This fight was making me think that this build is promising. I rang the first bell, afterwards went back to the Undead Parish and pushed my dex to 30. It was time for the Capra Demon. I was thankful I had a shield for the dogs, but there was one huge issue. The light attacks are a horizontal sweep. I ended up hitting the wall over and over again on the wood plank to kill the dogs. Freaking one dog almost killed me. I ended up having to use a heavy attack, which is an overhead vertical attack. Once the dogs were dealt with, it was just me and the Capra Demon, and damage was looking great once again. I was hitting about 90 damage a slice. After the Capra Demon, it was time to go down to the depths and pick up my large ember. I kept going, went to the Gaping Dragon. Nothing special here. Gaping Dragon is still a damage sponge as per usual. After the Gaping Dragon, I popped back up to the Undead Parish. I upgraded my Scimitar to +6 before going back down to Blighttown. At the Blighttown bonfire, I arrived at my 40 dexterity soft cap. Surely, Quelaag will fall right over to my might. Quelaag didn't go down as easy as I assumed, but she wasn't a problem. We're sitting at 231 attack power with 40 dex and a +6 Scimitar for this fight. Now that we're at the dexterity soft cap, I wanted to start pumping my endurance. I went back up through Sen's Fortress and ended up at the Iron Golem. He's particularly painful because he's highly resistant to slash damage, and this Scimitar only does slash damage. After tickling him to death as well, it was time to move on to Anor Londo. I popped all the souls I had on my inventory and pumped my endurance to 24. I'm gonna need a bit of endurance for Ornstein and Smough. Once I got to Ornstein and Smough, this build was starting to shine this fight. I was hitting Ornstein hard, and I was able to stagger him just after 5 quick hits. Super Smough took even more damage. He has nearly half the slash resistance as Ornstein does. Go figure! Both these bosses fell pretty quickly. After those 2 clowns, I wanted to pursue Nito as my next boss, so I went down to the Catacombs. The first huge issue with this build presented itself. I didn't have a way to illuminate my path through the Tomb of Giants. I can't see jack diddly squat. I worked off pure instinct and knowledge that I just have to keep going to the right to make it to Nito. After a couple attempts at Nito, I realized that the skeletons were too hard to deal with on a build like this without a divine weapon. I went back up, dunked on the Moonlight Butterfly, picked up the Divine Ember so I could ascend my Falchion I got earlier to a divine weapon, and then I went back down to Nito. With a divine weapon in hand, Nito was now a manageable fight. Having a shield with high endurance was nice for his AoE. It allowed me more damage uptime since I could just block that attack. The Nito fight went as well as you could hope for, aside from accidentally sidestepping into one of his lunging attacks, giving myself toxic. After Nito, I went down to the New Londo ruins. I farmed a couple Titanite chunks and got the very large ember from my boy Andre. This would get my weapon to plus 14. To get that last 15, I had to go visit the Stray Demon to get a Titanite slab. I then went to Seath afterwards. I realized that the lack of armor allowed me to get cursed a lot easier. I didn't have a Purging Stone, so guess what? We're doing this fight with a little over 300 health. The damage on Seath's main body is still respectable though, so we moved this fight along pretty fast. At this point, we were starting to approach the Nirn soft cap for the stamina pool at 40. After that point, it just increases your bleed resistance and your equip load. Now, we're ready for the 4 Kings. Once again, up until this run, I've always done this fight with heavy armor, high poise, and basically ignored the attacks. This fight really humbled me since I can't just tank the attacks. My Scimitar's damage was not very high, and I couldn't afford to be staggered. At a couple points, I was fighting 2 Kings at the same time, which also never happened. At the end, the last King just started cruising around. I have no idea what he was doing, but it helped me out. With the 4 Kings dead, time for the Bed of Chaos. Bed of Chaos is Bed of Chaos and was just a complete pain, man. Gwyn! This was my opportunity to whip out the skeleton's ability to parry. There's 2 problems though. Number 1, the amount of times I've parried in Dark Souls could be counted on one hand. It could probably be counted on one finger. Number 2, I absolutely stink at this game. So there was going to be quite a bit of a learning curve here. I wiped quite a few times trying to learn how to parry with this very unforgiving build and a 2-minute run back to the boss room. After my 6th or 7th attempt, it finally clicked. I became the parry master. It was like I was playing Sekiro again. Golly! Ultimately, Gwyn fell to my awesome might. And so concludes the story about a skeleton who beat Dark Souls. The Scimitar may look good on paper, but it just doesn't fit my playstyle. I'm not used to using curved swords, and the damage output isn't anything to write home about. One thing I will say, this run really highlighted how much I just stink at the game. I rely both heavily on vitality and armor to help me with common mistakes I make. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I do plan on making more lore accurate playthroughs. I think it's a really fun concept. If you guys have any other video requests for this series or another, please comment below. I love to get inspiration from you guys. Thank you guys, and I'll see you around.